Coming up on this episode of the Spiro Podcast.
I think as photographers in general, if you get stuck into art mode, you start thinking, how can I be better and better and better and better? And I think that there's truth in that. It's like, it's good to always be wanting to improve. But if people don't know who you are, it doesn't matter how good your product is. And so people need to know who you are first and foremost. And so I think that'd be the recommendation to anyone getting started or even anyone in business. You got to answer the question, do people know who you are?
Welcome to the Spiro Podcast, managing your real estate photography and videography business. With your hosts, Todd Golmic and Craig Magro.
Hi, and welcome to the Spiro Podcast, managing your real estate photography and videography business. Spiro is a software platform that's designed to help you manage your day-to-day real estate media business, but really to help it grow and scale as well. Welcome back to another week. If you're a longtime listener or viewer, if you're a first-time guest, is that the right word? First-time listener or viewer, welcome to the podcast. Spiro is all about the business of real estate photography and videography. Todd and I have said many times there's a lot of great resources out there on the creative side of what we do as photographers and videographers in the realm of real estate. And we encourage you to check those resources out. Just do a search on YouTube. You'll find all sorts of great videos and other podcasts out there. But we really want to help you build a strong business to help you achieve the goals that you have in your personal life and in the life of your family and those around you that you're empowering through business. So welcome to the podcast. Along with me each and every week, our co-host and owner and founder of Spiro, Todd Golmic.
Craig, happy Friday to us. Happy
Friday.
Whatever day it is to you listeners. And we are getting close to Christmas, so maybe it's already happened, but I'm excited. The year's coming to an end here. Exciting things coming up. Let's dive right in.
Yeah, I had to dress up for the occasion here, Todd.
Oh, Craig, I didn't even notice. So for those of you that are just listening to us, it is worth heading over to the YouTube and seeing Craig's attire right now, because this is fabulous. So I'm not even going to say what it is. It's just worth it seeing his Christmas cheer.
Right.
Now, we were talking that Craig is going to go to Vegas next year, wherever the conference is at. And I feel pretty strongly that Craig needs
to wear
this outfit. So when you go to the YouTube, give it a thumbs up if you can. This is no ploy to get you to just give us thumbs up. Give us thumbs up at this point, and we're going to peer pressure Craig into wearing, not only going, but wearing this outfit at the conferences next year.
Todd, you're my employer. Do I really have a choice if you tell me to do it?
Hey, yes, it is. It's just by the people. It's what I believe in. It's what our country was founded on. That's what I'm sticking to, Craig.
You know, I was telling our guest, who we're going to introduce here in a little bit, that by nature, I am an introvert, honest. And so I'm not really outwardly demonstrative in larger groups of people. But when I'm comfortable...
But you are wearing the outfit you have on today. I mean, that's...
And here's why. When I'm comfortable with a group, I let loose a little bit. You got to have some fun. Life's short. It's Christmas time. Yeah, got to spread some Christmas cheer here, right?
Yes. And I have an idea, Craig. So you know how they put blinders on horses so they don't... Like, that's just what it is right now. You don't know how many people are looking at you right now. Like, not to freak you out. But, yes, there's just three of us in this room right now. But, like, come on. I think we're just going to get you some blinders in Vegas. It'll be good anyways. You need a lot of blinders in Vegas. It'll serve two purposes.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, enough of this. Let's dive in.
Oh, this is fun. Let's keep going. I'm getting warmed up now.
Yeah. You like to make people uncomfortable, but I guess I brought it on myself. Anyway, all right. It is the Spiro Podcast. We like to always open up the podcast with updates on Spiro, the software, and what's going on. So, Todd, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Yes, a quick update. If you don't want to hear him, hit fast forward 4 times. That'll be a minute and you won't hear me. Update. So we're redoing the way Dropbox, we're going to host videos with Dropbox. So we're going to get rid of Vimeo, which is going to be huge. Vimeo is great. I think it's a great platform. They just got really, really expensive. Since we started using them. We're in a grandfather plan. Well, we're on an enterprise plan with Wow. which is very expensive. But you guys now are having a big expense. So we don't like that. We don't want that. And you guys already pay for Dropbox. It's already integrated. We're going to go to Dropbox. We think it's a great solution. So we are excited about that. We're going to make a quick update to the way you can add additional appointments to give you some more flexibility. So this was an update that happened maybe a month and a half ago, where you can quickly, easily send someone back out to shoot the drone because it was raining, to reshoot the master bedroom, or to send 2 photographers, one for twilight, one for non-twilight. So all of those examples, those special cases that happen, we're going to give a few more flexible options in there for you to quickly schedule what you want and mark what you don't want as well. So we are excited about that. Then coming up, looking into the new year, we have some big ideas, and we want to make sure they align with your big ideas. So it is always super helpful for us to know what you guys want. Where are there gaps in your business? Mm-hmm. Where do you feel like you need some extra help? Or where do you think software could further streamline your business? We've got a great page for that. That's the feedback board. Also the Spiro super user group. Post them in there on the feedback board. You can upvote other user suggestions, kind of see what the most voted on suggestions are. That's a great place for us. Again, by the people, Craig, I'm sticking to it. This is my pitch today, but collectively as a group, we want to do what's important to you guys to bring the most value.
I'm having a flashback to the Post Malone face tattoo phase that we had. I'm glad
it's funny you bring this up, Craig.
I'm glad you didn't put that up for a vote. That ballot issue has been expired. So that's
are we
not
past our timeline on that? Our window on that?
Yeah, statute of limitations on that. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to read that document to see how we can get that back on the ballot, because they have a lot of tattoo artists in Vegas when we take you there next year.
I bet they do. I bet they do.
Yeah.
I was tempted briefly once to get a tattoo. And then my boss at the time said, do you really want to deal with that when you're 80 years old and it's all saggy? And
it becomes a new thing.
You have a good point. You know, my boss's name back then was Todd as well. What is it with my bosses and the name Todd?
Really?
It's a good name. Yeah.
It's not a very common name.
Okay.
I don't know. This is good content, y'all. Let's get to some better content, Craig.
Right. So last week we had an awesome guest, Asaf Lowenstein, and shared some great information as part of the Owner Spotlight series on business continuity. I just really enjoyed that episode, Todd. He just had some great info. And one of the things that we're going to be trying to do here at the end of the year and in 2025 is do more of those Owner Spotlight series type episodes, because there's a lot of great information out there from other owners and other experts in our industry that we want to highlight and learn from. So we have another guest this week that I'm really excited to have on. I didn't have the pleasure of seeing his presentation at REPP 2024, but Todd, you did. You want to introduce our guest this week?
Yes, this is an individual I've gotten to know, and I love his energy. If you guys have ever been around him or talked to him, his energy is just incredible, always super positive. I feel like if I'm going to do something, like I want this guy with me, because we're just going to go and do it. And we're going to be positive about it all the time, and we're going to figure out a way. And that is just a really refreshing mindset to have, especially as owners. You know, it's tough. As owners of your company, you're doing something that not many people do. So seriously, kudos to all of you. It's not easy to own your own business. And there's times when our left brain gets in our way and we overthink. And as I look back over the last 20 years of being in business, you know, I'm like, wow, that was kind of a negative time for me. And over the years, you learn mechanisms to stay positive. And this individual is just a breath of fresh air to be around. I got the pleasure to hang out with him while we were in Vegas. We went down the Fremont Street. Craig, we won't take you there, but we went down the Fremont Street. We walked up and down the lit canopy and just had a good time doing that. Also, this individual is very tall as well. So I don't feel like you all come up to me in Vegas. You're like, wow, you're really tall. Yes, I am. So is this individual. So I feel like he's my brother from another mother. And I don't know where I'm going with that. But anyways, Scott Golmic, y'all, he is on the podcast. Many of you know him and love him. Scott, welcome to the show.
Man, it is so cool to be here and listen to the podcast all the time. So it's great to get a chance to be on it with you guys.
Scott told me before we started recording that he found it funny. And I'm like, did he actually mean corny? Was corny the word he was looking for?
I didn't get the memo on the dress code. I wish I knew.
I agree, Scott. I was a bit shocked too.
I just wanted to see what reaction I got out of you during the staff meeting this morning, Todd. And it worked. I
love it, Greg. I actually think it's fabulous. Yeah. And in his background, he had a virtual background in staff meeting this morning. It was Harry and Marv in the toy shop, and they were right on each side of his head, and he was just sitting there as well. So it was great. I love it, Craig. I love the festive cheer. It brought a smile to everyone's face.
Good. That was the point. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So yeah, welcome, Scott. Glad to have you. Don't worry about the dress code.
Now, Scott, can you, for those listeners that don't know you, can you just give us a little bit of background about how you got into real estate photography, kind of what your business is doing now, and just bring us up to speed with your real estate photography business?
Sure. Here's maybe the minute recap. So for the last 10 years, had shot professional sports while living in Pittsburgh. So at NFL stadiums, Pirate games, Penguin games, and loved it. We just felt convicted it was time to move and didn't know what work was going to be, but it felt like it was the adventure that our family needed to go on. And so whenever we listed our house for sale in Pittsburgh, we chose our realtor based on the quality of her photos. And just with my video background, I wanted somebody that was going to market our house well. I had no clue that real estate photography was an industry, but we legit picked our realtor based on her photos. When I met her photographer, that's when it was like, I think I can do this, and did the deep dive and learned as much as I could. So we moved to Florida on March 10th, 2023. And at that point started reaching out to realtors. My first shoot was 2 weeks later, a free shoot, March 27th. And then things escalated pretty quickly, and thankful for it. That year, about 3 or 4 months in, did like 10K. Towards the end of that year, about 9 months in, hired our first part-time photographer. And at this point now, so we're about 20 months in or something like that, just had our first $30,000 month, which was a huge win for our company.
That's amazing.
That is incredible, Scott. I knew some of the background of your story. I didn't realize the timeline was so small. You've done it so quick. I thought you were in business many more years, because the way you've grown and scaled and just your business mindset, kudos to you. That's exciting.
I appreciate you saying that. It has been a whirlwind. I feel like as a parent, you hear that line, the days are long, the years are short. I feel that not only as a parent, but in business as well. And so, it's flown by, and excited where we are, and excited to just imagine where we can be going.
Scott, a question popped into my head immediately when you shared with us how fast things grew. So you moved to Northeast Florida. You're in the Jacksonville area, correct?
You got it. Yep.
Okay. So I've got to believe that there's quite a few real estate photography companies and individuals in that market already. So did you find that the market was pretty saturated with other photographers?
I didn't know or care. And to go back to the blinders comment, the blinders comment that Todd had, I wasn't looking. I was just going and trying to introduce myself to as many realtors as possible. And I think that's one of the traps that you can get into in this business, is you start looking at what others are doing, and then you feel bad about yourself. It's like in your personal life, comparing your life to everyone else's like perfect social media. That's not their perfect life. And so it's the same thing in business, just not looking. And that's what it was. It was just kind of pedal to the metal. The other thing is, we moved down there. There was no plan B. So that helped. I don't know if I would recommend that to everybody, but it had to work. We had to go. And so there was an incentive like no other to get business. And so the outreach was there, and just trying to become the best known photographer. I think there's a lot of value in that, just making sure that people know who you are. And I think that's what attributed to some of the success early on.
So you just said a couple of things that were in your presentation that you just recently did. Todd, did you mention that's the REPP conference is where Scott presented at?
I think you mentioned it, Craig.
Okay. See, I'm too close to Christmas and vacation. My mind is going into neutral. So Scott, you did a presentation as part of the panel at REPP 2024, and I was watching your presentation on Eli's channel, and two of the things that you just said are the notes that I made. You made a comment during your presentation that the best known photographer is better than the best photographer. I'm like, whoa. So can you expound on that a little bit?
I don't think I get credit for making that up, but I do. That was an instrumental point for me in my business, is that I think as photographers in general, if you get stuck into art mode, you start thinking, how can I be better and better and better and better? And I think that there's truth in that. It's like, it's good to always be wanting to improve, but if people don't know who you are, it doesn't matter how good your product is. And so people need to know who you are first and foremost. And so I think that'd be the recommendation to anyone getting started, or even anyone in business. You got to answer the question, do people know who you are? And if not, how can you find more people to work with?
People buy from people they know, like, and trust. And if your photographer trusts you and likes you and knows that you represent them well when you're on that shoot for them, there's most of your success right there.
Let me tell you about Vegas real quick. I've never been so nervous in my life. I mean, here you go. I enjoy speaking. Put me in a brokerage presentation, I'm okay. I like that. All of a sudden, the lights are down. The stage is lit up. You've got 250 people in a room, which maybe doesn't sound like a whole lot, but this room was so long. I got up there and it was immediate, just like dry mouth. I was like, where did everything go? And it was wild. But I asked Todd the night before, I said, do you have any advice? And he said, just know that everybody in that room is your friend and they want to hear what you want to say. And that was really helpful. So I appreciate that, because that was a test to get up on that stage. And so thankful for that opportunity and appreciate that encouragement.
Yeah, Scott, if you had that dry mouth, it wasn't apparent. I mean, I was engaged the entire time. You did just a fabulous presentation. There were so many gold nuggets in there, and truly, like, just being yourself. And I've been around Scott a handful of times, and I've talked to him. We've had conversations, but every time I do, I leave going like, man, today's a great day. And that is a quality that I don't know if you understand you have that, Scott, but that's a quality you have. And I think a quality that is like, I went and I looked inside myself and like, every time that I'm leaving a conversation, do I leave that in a better way? Does that person understand that, there's positivity, there's, and I've shared my faith, Craig and I have shared our faith, as a Christian, that's what our goal is. I want to make sure that they see me as different. And Scott, every time I leave a conversation with you, I'm like, he is just the happiest, most positive individual. Like, he is fun to be around. He's contagious to be around. So it's no wonder your business grew so fast, once you left.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That means the world. Let me tell you, your guys' podcast, I feel like I know you guys, and I've listened to you in the car the whole time, or all the time. And so the way that you've shared your faith has been very impactful to me. And then also just the idea that the tagline at the end, to just breathe, I feel like every time I hear that is the exact right moment. I need to just breathe, because business is wild and things are going, okay, just breathe. Thank you for that reminder. Yeah.
I have a little bit of a question backing up on this idea, because I think it's just so it's the perfect idea of like, the best known photographer is better than the best photographer. So again, the person that has the largest fear and the most friends or connections in the industry is better than a photographer who is quality-wise, art-wise, the best photographer out of the group. I'm curious, Scott, how, because your background was shooting very high end, like the idea of shooting, NFL, professional, sports games, like that is the idea of how can we do it the best. and headshots as well. You know, I'm sure there was every headshot you took, you were probably thinking, how can I make this next shot my next best headshot? So you sell the house, move away, and I assume maybe it's not fair to say you have that mentality. Maybe I'm just wrong about what you had done in the past, but I'm assuming you were always pushing every day to make the quality better. Then you move, you kind of burn the ships, so to say, and you have this ability to flip the switch and go, wait a minute, I understand this market's different. What's the most important is being known. I have to have, quality has to be good enough. But where did you learn that? Had you always had that? Or how did you flip that switch?
Truthfully, I heard it from Eli, watched a lot of his content early on, and there were a couple of things that helped. I think he even made that comment, just like not getting stuck in art mode. And I think that was really important. Early on, it took me a very long time to shoot a house because I was trying to be perfect and have the exact right angle that nobody else can see the difference in besides me and us, maybe if we look at it. And so one of the things that I started to do was to just use a stopwatch and just to make sure that I'm on track. And that was like some good pressure on me to get in and get out of a house. And I think that this is true for clients. It's like as much as quality is important, so much is time on site. You can't be there that long because you're inconveniencing the realtor and the homeowner. So I think just realizing pretty early on, you got to get in and out. And then the other thing too was sending media. It was a lesson I had to learn of like, okay, the quality is good enough, send it and see what happens. And everyone continued to say, hey, it looks good. And so, there was definitely a pivot of having to be perfect and always striving to be better, and also saying we need to just get this product out and it's good as is kind of thing. Yeah,
that's Eli Jones for you, those of you that don't know. So our good friend Eli Jones, you can find him over on YouTube. I believe he's it's Eli Jones. He has done a fabulous job with putting out, again, a lot of business information with how to grow a business. And so you can find more information there. Now, Scott, one thing that I think you also have an uncanny ability is you take advice and you go and run with it. I know there was another situation where I think you were at a conference or you were at a gathering. It was an Eli Jones conference. And basically it came down that you should stop doing something. Do you mind sharing that story? Because you did it right away. And it seems scary. I'm like, oh boy, like to my mind, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, you want me to do this? And then you saw the benefits from it. Do you mind sharing that? Because I think there's a lot to learn there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was around the $20,000 revenue month mark. And so I was at a mastermind conference and we were kind of going through all of our businesses. And Eli at that point said, at this point, shoots are bad. And I said, wait, what? Like it threw me for a loop. Shoots are good. Shoots are what bring in revenue. Shoots are great. And he said, you're going to stall and you're going to slow your business if you are the one that continues to do the shoots. Now, I don't know if they're saying that 20,000 is that number for everybody, but just that mindset of like, there's a tipping point that you can't shoot anymore. You're going to stall your business. And so you need to have photographers on your team, and not only have them on your team, you need to be sending them first and foremost. And so that was such a radical change in my mind, my business, that night I went home, went into Spiro, and I took my name off the list. All right. If they say don't shoot, I'm ready. I'm not gonna shoot. I like shooting, but if that's what's best for the business. And so that night went home and did it and told our team, like, all shoots are going to you first. Now, it hasn't been perfect. I have still shot, but I'm in a situation now where I'm more of the emergency shooter. Something comes up and our team is booked or not available, I can hop in and do it. If there's a VIP client and they really want me to shoot, I'll still try and point them to the team. But if there's any issue that they would go anywhere, great, I'm coming and I'll shoot the property. So that's kind of where we are right now. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I need to step into next year is more of that owner role, admin role, and continue to hire a team and continue to send the team out. And so that was pretty radical of a change. And I think, so I was in the coaching program. Todd, learned so much from you in that program and with all the coaches there. I don't get the idea of like not implementing right away. To me, it just seems like if you're going to tell me to do something, you've done it 20 years, done. I'm going to do it tonight. Like, I'm not going to waste any more time. And so, try and just do everything as fast as you can.
That's the opposite of what our brains tell us. Our left brains tell us, oh, wait a minute, I've never done this before. This person's telling me to do it. It seems scary because I've never done it before. And the ability to just go and do that is a great skill, Scott.
There's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is just, knowing facts. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. So if you can take someone else's knowledge and apply it to your situation, that's operating in wisdom. So take coaching, apply that knowledge and watch what it does for you. Todd, you and I have talked about that tipping point that Scott just mentioned of removing yourself. And I, with my business, I didn't want to grow into that larger type of business where I stepped back as owner and took my hands off because I enjoyed the creative process so much. And so I stayed small and was more the boutique type of real estate company. But now obviously part of Wow Video Tours, it's kind of the best of both worlds. I get to still do the business development and the shooting, which I enjoy. But now I'm part of an organization, a larger organization that can serve our clients even better than I was able to as a solopreneur, basically. So Scott, would you say it's fair that, there's different strokes for different folks? Maybe they don't have the goal of growing a larger business.
100%. There's no right or wrong. It's whatever is right for you and your goal. Yeah, absolutely.
The point being, take the wisdom, from others and apply it to whatever your situation is.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. I think one of the scary things that can be with that is sometimes if we want to grow and be the owner, I would say probably a lot of people that listen, most of the people that listen to this podcast probably have that mindset that they want to scale a business. Otherwise, they won't be listening to this podcast because we're really not that entertaining otherwise. So you're getting content that, sorry, Craig, you almost spit your coffee out. So I would say most of you out there listening have that mindset. The thing I would caution you in doing is thinking that your situation is different than Scott's, thinking that your situation is different than mine. You're going to say, oh no, Scott was different because he had to do it because he was in a new city. He had no other choice. I've had this job and I have healthcare and I have these 3 other variables. No, your situation is not any different. Or if you go, Todd's done it for 20 years. It was way different 20 years ago. Yes, the world was black and white 20 years ago, but it was not any different than what it is now. That's the biggest thing when I talk to you all is I always try to stress whenever I give advice and I talk about brokerage deals or how to scale. It took me a long time to do it. And there was bumps along the road, but the consistency of doing that. And I think that's what it boils down to a lot is taking advice, being consistent and not looking back. Your situation is not any different. It's not any different other than the fact that maybe that's a truth to you, but not true in this world. So if you want to scale in 2025, we're at the time of year that you need to start thinking about 2025 as a business owner. Yep. What do you want your business to do for your family this next year? And work those goals backwards. If you want to scale, I would highly suggest you listen to Scott's story and you look at making some of the moves that he had made because they were scary. And Scott has those moments. He would probably tell you, yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking, but I just did it. Like, I'm going to take the advice. But it does work. There's tried and true plans that you can run on. And the idea of focusing on your business, having the mindset that you doing shoots is bad. I love that from Eli. You doing shoots are bad. If you're at 20K a month and you want to get to 30K a month, if you do shoots and you're stuck at 20K a month, over the course of 1 year, when you could be at 30K or more, you've just burnt $120,000. 10K over 12 months. You've just wasted $120,000 by not making that decision to stop shooting.
I think that's one thing for me next year is I have to get out of the way, whether it be a limiting belief or thinking like, oh man, 30 is good. That might be as high as we can go. I don't think that I necessarily believe that, but there are things that you're just talking about right there that are definitely keeping us down that I need to eliminate so that we can just grow more next year. And it's so cool to be in a community that you see others winning in, and you get to hear their stories, because it does make you think like, man, I can do this too. And so I don't know, do other industries have this great of a community? I can't imagine that like there's a plumber community or something that has a podcast that everyone listens to. This is phenomenal. And it's so cool to get to know everybody.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Scott, can I dig in a little bit more into your presentation as we're talking about business growth? Let's dive into some kind of practicals. So you went from starting a brand new business, $0, to hiring, was it 3 or 4 photographers was your presentation? So that for that person that's getting ready to maybe make that step, take that leap of faith and back out, from shooting so much, what is the first step in even pursuing that? How do you hire a photographer? Is a photographer the first person you should hire?
Yes, I do think that a photographer is the first person that you should hire. And then I love the model of a part-time photographer. I love that they get paid while they shoot. And if there is a slow day or slow week, that has already been communicated during the interview process, and they're okay with that I don't have the stress that expenses are going out as revenue is not necessarily coming in. And so to find that person, I think some people feel like it's a trap to think that person doesn't exist, but that's not true. I've got 4 great people on my team that fit that model, and this is what they wanted, to allow them to do some other things. So that model, and I think the other trap is people thinking that, my clients aren't going to want anyone else to shoot but me. I've had a handful maybe say that, but it hasn't been nearly as much of an issue as that I thought it would be. So I would hire a part-time photographer, and our first photographer is the worship leader at our church. He works at the church, but on Fridays he doesn't work, and he was looking just to make some extra money to pay off his mortgage. He likes cameras and great. This is ideal. I know the person, I trust that they are going to treat our clients well, our homeowners well, all the things. And he already has an interest in cameras. I'll show you exactly how we shoot it. And there's just so much trust in sending our team out. So I think if you can find that person, for me personally, again, this is it's not right or wrong. For me, I would much rather hire somebody that is kind of in a circle that I know, or as a referral from somebody I know, as opposed to posting on Indeed, at least in this stage of business, because it's just so easy to then trust them and send them out. I would look there first. And Jared didn't have a ton of availability. I mean, he was available Fridays and maybe a morning or 2 in the week. So potentially he could do 4 shoots. In the grand scheme of things, that's terrible availability. But in that season of life, in that season of our business, 4 shoots, I think I was doing 12 shoots a week. 4 is huge. Yeah, if he could take some of that off. And if I could just buy my morning back on a Friday, or if I could buy my whole day Friday, that changes. And so I would, if you're in the spot of hiring and you're feeling stuck, man, go find that person that's in your circle. Tell them you're looking to hire. And if you can find somebody that's willing to do a day or maybe 2 or a week, it at least gets you that rep of interviewing, of training, of the whole process, introducing people to clients. Now the next person who might have a little bit more availability, you've already done it. And so then you do it again. And it's just get the ball rolling, I think is the point here, instead of waiting and thinking you have to hire this perfect full-time photographer.
Yeah, that was one of the things I left your presentation with, Scott, was I was really examining my life as what items was I maybe holding back on, even subconsciously, because I was like, I don't know if that's going to work, where it's like this idea of progress over perfection. Am I trying to be too perfect with something? Like you mentioned, you got rid of the idea that this perfect hire doesn't exist. You got that out of your mind. Like, let me look for this person. You found this person. And such a great point that this person is someone that's in your sphere. So they're going to be a little bit easier to train in the fact that you have a relationship with them already. You know and can trust them. And they're going to give you a little bit of grace because they're the first person you've trained. So you're going to learn some things through training. And then the next time you go, you could potentially be a little bit of a different person. You're going to be better at doing it because you've done it already. So that idea of progress over perfection is something that I try to examine every day in our business and what we're doing.
I would much rather make a decision and then course correct along the way, as opposed to waiting on the sidelines, trying to figure out the exact perfect situation. I would rather just go.
So mistakes are an inherent part of growing a business, and we've all made them. So we talked a little bit earlier about knowledge and wisdom. So the mistakes that you've made, Scott, what knowledge have you gained from those that you could pass on to somebody else that maybe isn't at that point yet, but could avoid those mistakes? What wisdom would you share with them?
Yeah, there's definitely some things along the way that I wish I would have done differently. And so a couple of them are like creating boundaries. I think that there's an element of, it might be good early on in business to just like, you want to shoot yes. You say yes so many times you can grow the business. There also comes a tipping point of like, wow, your yeses are affecting family. Your yeses are affecting your personal life. So creating some boundaries, I don't know where that is. I do think that there's value in saying yes. I do think that I wish I would have created a little bit more boundaries in my life. And that's certainly a goal in 2025, in stepping into more of an owner role, in creating boundaries and systems to protect time with family, to protect weekends and protect time. So that's one. The other thing is not celebrating. You know, you like when you first start, you hear 10K and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't eat. Like, and then you get there and you're like, okay, cool. How about 20? You know, and it's like, what in the world? We just worked as hard as we could to get to 10K. Why not celebrate it? You know? And so we did have a maybe $15 bottle of champagne once we hit 30K. And that was our celebrating. But I do think that it's like, man, I wish I would have. It's just, maybe it's an entrepreneurial spirit of like constantly moving the goalposts. Where like you have a goal, okay, we're going on to the next one. And it's like, man, that can't be healthy. You have to be able to celebrate the goal that you've been working towards. And so that would be one. I clearly define your goal. And when you hit it, what's that celebration going to look like?
Do you feel like if you don't pause to do that celebration, that could affect morale? Is there a psychological effect not celebrating might have on your team?
I haven't thought about it, but I think that sounds great. Of like, yeah, of course, life's too short. Why aren't we celebrating more? You know, and so that's one. I guess if there was one more thing, you had asked earlier about hiring a photographer first, and I jumped in there because I want to say yes, I do think that you want to hire a photographer. Definitely, in my opinion, before an admin or before hiring somebody different. But I would put a caveat in there. I wish I would have hired a virtual assistant before our photographer. Okay. And so at the time I didn't. And so I'm training, but I'm still doing the delivering in the morning, and I'm still doing a lot of these tasks that I don't necessarily need to do. I wish I would have hired a VA before Jared to completely offload delivery. That was another one of like, why is it so hard to hand over the reins of delivery? But man, am I thankful to have done that now and have a virtual assistant to do it. I feel like I could have maxed out a little bit more as a solo photographer if I had a VA in place. But yeah, so thankful to have them. So that's maybe something else along the way. If you don't have a VA and you're approaching, I don't know, 15, 20,000 and your day is just max, you're delivering, you're shooting all day, you're uploading at night, a virtual assistant can definitely help you buy back your time a little bit.
Scott, I think that's so great. And the fact of those are ways that you can easily buy back your time. And for those listeners out there that don't have a virtual assistant, a VA, what task are they doing for you each day? Just so our listeners know what they can offload.
Yeah. I mean, their tasks have grown. And so if you don't have a VA yet, I would start with one task and they are delivering for you. And if that's all they do, so I have two VAs, both work 4-hour shifts and have kind of different roles. And so I can go into that a little bit, but the first VA that I hired is strictly QC and delivery. He has a photo editing background, came from a referral from Tyler Graham, a real estate photographer in Myrtle Beach. Anyway, if you can just offload that task, that changes your mornings. And so I would start there and do nothing else until they've mastered that. I used Loom quite a bit to record how I did it, send it to them. And so that was part of the training. And it might have taken a week or two until they felt comfortable to try it. And then they did it. And you're like, holy cow, I never have to go back to QC and delivery. So I think somewhere along the way, it's just been a trap that like some people, when they hire a virtual assistant, they give them 20 things to do. And then they wonder, why isn't this working? Why isn't my virtual assistant crushing? Well, there's 20 things. Pick the highest, most important task and give that to them, and then slowly add. So to give you some other examples, they'll handle edit requests, lot lines, kind of touch-ups. At this point, the IG method that Eli coaches and talks about, reaching out to realtors, he's now doing that for me. Nice. Finding realtors on Instagram, and then when they follow back, I have a video recording and a text message that he's sending them. So that's part of our outreach. He's also finding houses that maybe don't have great photos on homes.com. And so whenever he finds those, he's putting that into a spreadsheet and then eventually sends kind of like a cold email to them about, would you be interested in refreshing or updating your photos? And so he's finding those for me. I know that it would be better if I just got on the phone and called, but it was not happening for so long that it felt like we need to just at least get this ball rolling. And so he's doing some of that. And so that's another thing that I think a virtual assistant can do. Documents any mistakes photo editors are making, so then I can just easily communicate that to editors. Builds an ongoing invoice. So at the end of the month, whenever I get my invoice from our editors, I can compare it to what our virtual assistant says, just to make sure that there's no discrepancies. He's monitoring my emails for me. And again, these are all things that have grown into it. Sending review requests, that's been phenomenal. And then kind of building playbooks. And then also texting clients that we haven't worked with in 90 plus days, kind of a check-in point. And so that's everything. Those are the tasks that he does. I have a separate virtual assistant that does a little bit more social media specific stuff. But anyway, it's been a game changer having them.
Oh, that is great. That's just a cheat sheet you gave us, Scott. So thank you for that. Rewind that back through, y'all, and write those tasks down. Start with QC and delivery and show them how to do it. Record yourself doing that. Watch them doing it. Let them do it and watch them, and then have them do it and confirm that it was correct, as you take them through. Yeah.
Can I hop in real quick? I feel like I also just want to share what our other virtual assistant is doing and just give you a little bit of perspective. I might be paying my virtual assistants too much. I heard that at the conference. I'm paying $7 an hour, and they do a tremendous job. And so for 4 hours, it's $28. And you have to reconcile in your head, if they only QC and deliver, and you get to buy back your time, your morning, would you be willing to pay $28? The answer is yes, always. And so that is literally the only task. Done. Everything else is bonus. Okay, so our other virtual assistant brought on a referral from, again, like even the virtual assistants have been referrals or kind of like within a network. And so that's what's worked for me. A realtor, her social media really stepped up. I talked to her about it. She had a virtual assistant. I asked, is there room for her to do more work? And now I'm working with her. So at this point, her priority is social media. We don't have like a calendar necessarily. It's just constantly here are the ideas. And we're always working like 2 or 3 days in advance. Creating layouts on Instagram using Instagram IG layouts. So the stories, we just show 3 horizontal photos in that vertical frame, and we tag the realtor and we tag the brokerage. It's like a cheat code. They then are looking for content. They share it on their channel. Now we're in front of their whole office because they've shared our very simple IG story. So she's doing these things again, like I could be doing it, but I wasn't. And so it was like, is it better for me to do nothing or to bring on somebody that can just be consistent for us? And so liking posts, managing my inbox. She did a market research project, finding other companies in the area. I just want to make sure we're in the ballpark of pricing all of our services. She created a list of every brokerage in the 3 counties we serve and sent a cold email. And then I'm going through and following up with them. She also just built our newsletter. And so this is phenomenal. Like we're now 3 months into having a newsletter, which is exciting. Nice. Sending client care emails 2 days later. Just wanted to follow up. Make sure you got your media okay. If you haven't left a review, would you be willing to leave us a review? And then also here's some training, and it's how to use Spiro, how to maximize Spiro. And so that training's in there. Anyway, I could go on with the list, but start small and then grow that list from there. Pick your the activity that you can offload that's causing you the most stress.
Probably fair to say offload the things that aren't necessarily revenue generating so that you can spend your time building more business.
A 30-second plug to a book that rocked my world, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Talks about time audits in there. I don't know the 3 specific words, but it's basically you like audit your time, you figure out which things you need to offload, and then you fill it with a higher leverage activity. And then you just repeat that cycle. And every time you go through that cycle, like it's time for me to do a time audit. I need to do that and ID those spots to be able to offload some of these tasks also.
That's wisdom you can share with your clients as well, especially, newer realtors that are trying to do it all by themselves. They're trying to take their own photos. They're trying to edit their photos, their videos. Is that really building their business? Showing them the value of how you can bring benefit to them and help them grow their business by offloading those things off their plate so that they can go out and network and build business. I mean, you're adding value to their business just like your VAs are adding value to yours.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm a huge believer in the time audit. I think we did a podcast on this, or a portion of a podcast, but I just started again, y'all. I'm holding up. So here's my time audit. And so it's as simple as it's literally a time tracking. So this timesheet is Monday through Friday, and we can find a copy and put up there for you. But this is Monday through Friday, 7 till 8 p.m. And of course, you're not going to use it all, but every 15-minute block, you're just writing down what you're doing. And over the course of a day and a week, you then, at least the way that I do, and I had a coach teach me this, was you go back through and you categorize those activities as admin. He used nurse and doctor kind of mentality, where the doctor is the highest, the most bang for your buck, if you will. Admin is those things that Scott just talked about, like, hey, I don't need to do these. In fact, it's a waste of my time to do these, and I can train someone to do these. So if you've never done a time audit, now's a great time to do it and just really see where you're spending your time. And then another good time is maybe in 6 months when we're back into busy season. And I suggest you do those time audits for at least 2 weeks so you get a really good idea. I know you're like, oh, Todd, you want me to write down for 2 weeks? Yes, do it. I do it. I won't tell you to do it if I didn't do it myself. And I do this twice a year at least. And I do it for way more than 2 weeks. And it is one of the most valuable things I have ever done, because I'm look back at it, I'm almost horrified, like, you did that. Or the other thing you do is you realize, you're like, wait a minute, do I really want to write this down? Like, do I want to take account that I just spent 30 minutes on Facebook? Like, no, I check it. We all need to be on it. We need to check it. But when you start scrolling, you start watching those stupid little videos of someone, for me, it's basketball, because, I'm in the algorithm for basketball plays. And when I watch like too many basketball plays, like, I got to get off of here. This is not valuable for my time.
Our guest, if you're just hopping in, Scott Golmic, he is the owner of I love your business name, the Real Estateographers. I can't even say it. How do you say it, Scott?
The Real Estateographers.
Let's go. Whether you need a photographer or videographer, just call the Real Estateographers. That's the idea. It's a long name. A long email address.
So Scott gave a presentation at the REPP conference 2024. And Scott, when as a business owner, when you find yourself kind of stuck in a situation or too much on your plate, what would you suggest to the owner to kind of step back or get out of that stuck situation?
Yeah. The time audit, I would absolutely do that. But there's this saying that really impacted me, and it's, when in doubt, zoom out. And I would just encourage everybody to do that. If you're going through a hard season, or it feels like you're doing way too much or whatever, it's kind of like the stock market. If you look at like every second or minute, hour, whatever, but if you zoom out, ideally you're just seeing this. And the idea is, if you can zoom out from the pressures of the day-to-day and get a glimpse on business and however long your business has been in play. Like for me, we're about 20 months in, and there has been a roller coaster ride. Please know that this has not been all easy and smooth sailing. There were a number of days waking up, not knowing what is going on and trying to just figure it out. So just in full transparency, this is not all rainbows over here. And so the idea of just, when in doubt, zoom out was really impactful to me.
Todd, can I share a practical example? When he said that, something that just exploded in my head.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Okay, so You know that my youngest son, Zeke, and I, we started jujitsu training back in March of this year.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that finished up. It was a father-son cohort that we did through our church, and the physical aspect of this cohort was this jujitsu training where we earned our yellow belts. So I decided to continue. I've never been in a fight in my life. I've never thrown a punch in my life. Okay, so the fact that I decided to continue, I'm blowing my own head that I have these goals to just get myself in better shape physically, and I've found that it helps me mentally, kind of unplug from everything else. Because when you're in jujitsu, when you're grappling with this other guy, and they're trying to throw an armbar on you, and they've got control of what's called the box, which is, your shoulders, your hips, and there's one other I'm blanking out on. When they have control of that box, or maybe you have control of theirs, but they're trying to get out, you're kind of stuck in this situation, right? Where you got to figure out very quickly what you're going to do next. Our Renchi, our instructor, Scott, the phrase is almost exactly the same. When in doubt, circle out. Everything is circles in jiu-jitsu. It's circling out of the position that you're in to open yourself up to other possibilities of your plan of attack, basically. So that was a beautiful example you just shared of zoom out so that you can get the bigger picture so that you can then re-engage and keep moving forward with whatever your plan is. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that too. Circle out.
I think it's so relevant, this idea of zooming out. Just a few practical things, because I'm not good at that. There's times where I still today, and I look back, I'm like, I didn't zoom out. And I think I tie this into the idea that Scott gave earlier of just moving the goalpost, where you get to 10K and you're like, oh, what's 10K anymore? That's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I should have been at 20. And it's like, no, wait a minute. The goal was 10. And when we were doing no K, or we were doing one shoot a week, 10K was fabulous. So just a couple practical things that I try to do. I try to screenshot wins, an email, or I write it down, and I try to keep in a folder, and we share those as a team. And I encourage the other team members to just take a screenshot or just save that moment in time that we had that win. And then we share those at Friday meeting. We have a staff meeting on Friday for WOW, and then we have a staff meeting on Thursday. So we always start off with wins. What was good this week? And I think that's just one thing that is, because when I sit in Friday morning meeting and I sit there and if I don't save them, or if my team doesn't save them, you look back and you go, what the heck happened this week? And you remember when Sally was unhappy, and when Tom couldn't unzip a video file, a zip folder, and when a photographer forgot a drone. Like, you remember those things. That's the way our brain works. At least the way my brain works. I remember what went wrong, but I don't sit back there and go, oh, Jess did this incredible thing, and Besa put in these 12 orders in a row and figured it all out. And Jessie did this thing where she referred 2 people in and collected a lot of invoices. So screenshot it. It's super simple. Write it down. At least keep a log of it somewhere. And then just one more thing on that. If you have kids, encourage your becoming teenager kids to do this. John Acuff, we mention him quite a bit. He has a podcast that is called All It Takes Is a Goal. He wrote a book for teens, and it's called How Teens Win. Coincidentally, I'm reading that to my 10-year-old and my 12-year-old right now. And one of the very early things that actually his daughters wrote the book, which is kind of cool, that his daughters suggested, and John had them do this as their dad, but had them write down those wins. I think it's an incredible correlation that our brains as a entrepreneur and a business owner are very much like 10, 12, 13, 14-year-old boys or girls. And for those of you that don't know or haven't been around, I've had the blessing to coach a 7th grade team this year. I've coached younger, and I'm still am, but I have a 7th grade team that is teens, and I haven't had a teen yet. So I'm learning things as a dad. I'm learning things as a coach. And just the anatomy of a brain, the frontal lobe of a male, of a boy, does not develop till they're 18. You know what your frontal lobe does, y'all? It makes you not jump off of something when it might hurt you. It makes you not say something that is crazy or not allowed. Like, it's your decision-making little tap on the shoulder that says, this is probably not a good idea to do this. And your kids don't get that until they're 18 years old. So having them write down those wins. And I think as an entrepreneur, we don't get it until we're 18 years old in business. It actually took me longer. Like, I look back over 20 years now, I'm like, wait a minute, I just didn't connect the dots. Like, my frontal lobe of business did not develop yet. I had all these great things, but everything was telling me it's bad. So I would suggest just to write that down in a long-winded approach, but I think it's so valuable to celebrate those wins, like Scott said, and to just get a very easy way, a concrete way to remember them, because your brain doesn't want to remember them because it's just the way we're wired as humans. Scott, do you have any tips on that idea of when in doubt, zoom out? I'm fascinated with that. I love that idea. Did you have, what was the tipping point for you where you said, wait a minute, I'm pushing too hard? You talked about setting boundaries as a family. What was kind of your moment where it's like, wait a minute, I need to change something here?
There's been a number of those moments along the way. So I don't know that there's just one, but I think as a solo shooter, it was just becoming way too much to try and do everything. And so hiring, that was like a tipping point. But even this past September, it felt like everything stopped. The business stopped. There were no calls. There were no emails. I thought, okay, well, it was a fun run, throw in the keys and go start something else. But it's like, it's crazy what your mind can do to think that after a slow day, maybe a slow week, a slow 2 weeks, your confidence is shot. My confidence is shot. And so I look back at it, but it was like 4 weeks of just really quiet business. There was a hurricane, maybe some other things. I don't know what was going on, but it was slow in September. And that kind of threw me for a loop. And so that kind of mentality, I mean, I'm not perfect at it, but even just saying it helps change your perspective. And man, if you can just have a conversation with that kind of topic in mind about zooming out, then I think that you'll be a lot better. But I don't know, something that definitely helps is community, to having people around you, other real estate photographers around the country or wherever, just to connect and ask them some questions. And all of a sudden they can give you some truth that you already know, but you're not allowing yourself to hear. And so I think that's probably one of the best ways that you can do it, is just get connected in a community.
We were meant for community. My worst times in life that I've found is when I get stuck inside my own head and you kind of isolate yourself off from everybody else. So yeah, that's great advice, Scott.
Just incredible information, Scott. As we wrap up here, any remaining advice or words of wisdom you want to give our listeners?
Yeah. I've got revenue goals for next year. At REPP, I wrote down, I want to have a $75,000 month. And it's a huge jump from 30. A lot's going to happen to get there. So it's fun to have those revenue goals. But one of the best nuggets that I heard at the conference was not even at the conference. I mean, it's amazing. You go to these things and it's the lunch that you had with somebody, the breakfast, you go to Fremont Street with Todd and the gang, like those conversations are incredible. Well, there was one conversation that really stuck out, and it was with Austin. And he said, I want to be famous at home. And I just love that concept, because I think that I want to provide for family. I want to grow this business. Yeah, I love growing the business and I have goals there, but man, I don't want to miss the mark at home. And so anyway, I could get a little emotional talking about it. That's my goal for 2025, is to be famous with kids at home, famous with my wife at home, and just being present. And so putting those boundaries into place, continuing to grow the business, but really focusing on family is my goal in 2025. And we own a business. We get to do that. We get to make those decisions to create that time. Sometimes it's easier said than done. Like you start a business because you want to have more time and more money, and then you just invest all of your time and money into growing it. But I see what's possible out there, and I want to achieve those revenue goals while achieving just an incredible family and at home.
Wow, Scott. Wow. That hits home with me. I mean, that hit me in the chest. And I think that's something that is it's just so valuable. And I think it's something that we maybe need to talk more of on this podcast. I think the demographic of our listeners might just be in a marriage, getting married, or maybe just having kids. I'm not really sure. I'm just kind of guessing. I would say overall, as I think about seeing the people in the room or in a community, on Facebook, I would say overall they're younger. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something so important, that as being in the younger phase of life, we'll do everything. We'll trade time for money. And I shared this a week or two ago, and I didn't make this up. This came from someone else. But we'll trade all of our time for money. But at the end of your life, you'll trade all of your money for time. And navigating that as a business owner can be tough. And like you mentioned, Scott, we start this business and we have goals of family and we have personal goals in mind, but we let our left brain kid ourselves to say, just push through, just go 80 hours now so you don't have to go 80 hours then. But when you get to then, that 80 hours will not be worth it. You will wish that you didn't go 80 hours because you can't get back in time. You might have the money then, but it will mean nothing to you because your kids are grown and they forgot that you missed their basketball game or football game or their concert or their recital, or you just weren't at home. So that is something that I'm convicted with, Scott. That is something that I think it's important for all of us truly to consider and to keep at the top of our mind.
100%.
As a fellow dad with both of you that does have a teenager, my oldest is 19. He's already moved out of the house. I'm going back to the time that I was manager of a radio station. I was working 70 hours a week. And looking back at that, it was the worst time of my marriage. It was the hardest time with my oldest, just with behavioral issues, just full transparency here, guys. Because I was the manager, right? I didn't own the station, but I owned the station. That was my responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I made that my priority, thinking that it all rode on me. And as owners of businesses, we can be tempted to feel that pressure and feel that responsibility. But guys, I'm telling you, like Scott said, like Todd just said, that 70 hours, you might gain it for the business, but you lost it with your kid, and you don't ever get that back. Now you can try and rectify that in the future and spend more time, but you can never go backwards. Mm-hmm. So that's why we say take a breath. That's what Spiro means, is breath. We want to be successful. We want to grow our businesses. We have a responsibility to do that, but there's a balance, and it is possible. So, yeah, Scott, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that.
Every time I hear that, just take a breath, man. It just hits me so hard.
Our guest, Scott Golmic, he's the owner of the Real Estateographers. There, I got it. Presenter at the REPP 2024 conference, gave a presentation on starting from $0 to hiring 3 photographers. Scott, thank you so much for making time this week to join us here on the podcast and sharing your wisdom.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Scott, if anyone wants to get a hold of you or they can follow you, where can they find you at?
Yeah, easiest way is on Instagram. Feel free to send me a message if you want to reach out and do that. It's the Real Estateographers. It's a little drone pin, so you could see it on there. Also have a personal, just Scott Golmic Instagram. And so that's probably the easiest way to connect. And since the REPP conference, there's been some really cool conversations with photographers around the country. So please feel free to reach out.
All right. Well, we're closing down to the end of 2025, coming up on Christmas here and the New Year's. And we've got one more podcast we're going to do for 2025. Shannon Landers from our team is going to be on with me next week, I believe it is, Todd. And we're going to be talking about the first quarter forecast for 2025. Shannon's got some great insights, so make sure you catch that podcast episode. And we just want to say from the entire Spiro team, guys, we appreciate you. We count it a privilege to be in this real estate photographer community with you. And thank you for watching and listening, here in 2024. It's just been a blast getting to know everybody. Todd, any thoughts from you?
Tune in next week. Shannon is a wealth of knowledge. Shannon joined the team almost just a little over 6 months ago, I believe, or almost 6 months ago. Shannon helped me grow and scale WOW. Shannon has an incredible wealth of knowledge of the real estate industry. She's recruited agents. She built our sales and marketing program at WOW. She then ran real estate offices. She is a realtor. So she has a ton of knowledge coming up here. So please tune into that. You guys, if you haven't met her yet, you'll love her. A ton of information there and just great insight. And sorry, I won't be joining you. I'm taking my kids to go see Christmas lights. So
good for you.
I'll send you all a picture.
Priorities. That's awesome. All right. Well, guys, again, thank you so much. It's been a great week. Scott, again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, guys. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. All right, guys, make sure you take time this week. Be thankful for the blessings in your life. And like we've talked about a couple of times this episode, make sure you carve out some time to take a breath. You have a great week. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Spiro Podcast, Managing Your Real Estate Photography and Videography Business. This is a production of Spiro and WOW Video Tours. You can find out more about Spiro's real estate media business management software at our website, spiro.media.